Okay, so we are on to our last and final group of sessions at the moment. I'm delighted to have finally met and be able to introduce David Harrow, who I will just hand over straight to him to let him to do the rest. So over to you, David.
Great. Well, look, thank you very much to everyone for participating in this seminar, and of course to Daryl, who's afforded us the great privilege of speaking today. Morning, noon, or night is certainly Saturday, and I don't take it for granted that everyone has turned up for that. So my name is David Harrow. It's my great privilege to be the headmaster at AKS Lytham, which is a school of around 800 students aged 0 to 18 in Lytham St Anne's in Lancashire in England. I'm joined by my colleagues Faye Marland, who's our assistant head for staff and student development, and by Nick O'Loughlin, who's our head of student inquiry. Now, previously, I worked at Oakham School with Daryl, and I feel today like someone who saw the Beatles playing in the Cavern Club in 1961. And I remember fondly the early conversations about the FOSIL group when we decided that the spirit of inquiry was best served by engaging with like-minded people across the world. And I remember the work behind getting the thing going, and it was amongst the funnest times in my career. And I do need to pay brief tribute to my former colleague, Louise Hitchin, who's a relatively unsung hero in this community, but she was responsible for getting the website and the design assets in place in the first place. And I find myself even more excited today than I expected to be to see the reach of FOSIL Group across the globe. And for example, to see what was once one of a cluster of possible logos for the group appear in Australia as the backdrop to the brilliant work being done by colleagues on another continent. Now we have the natural evolution to the IAI, and suddenly, I suppose not suddenly really, it's so much more than it ever was. Now, Terry Pratchett observed that if you don't know where you are, then you don't know where you're going. And that's not just a motivator and a metaphor for our discussions today. For me, where I was actually turned out to be in some debate, and I did get into a quiet proxy war on the internet last year. So this is where we are. This is where you all are, in fact, somewhere on this ball, courtesy of Google Earth. And this is roughly, just going on a bit, this is roughly where our school is, up in Lancashire in England. And this is what it looks like if we left the school out in the sun just a little bit too long. It looks something like this. But there was a source of conflict here. This is actually the start of a very, very tiny battle that I had online, because an anonymous contributor, and you can do this, decided to change the name of our school to AKS St Anne's. And now that's not what we're called. If you go to the signs outside the school, it's definitely not that. But the reason is historical. Our twin town, where we are, of Lytham St Anne's, is nothing of the sort. There's Lytham, which has been there since the Domesday Book, and there's St Anne's, which was built by the Victorians, and they are not the same place, and don't you just know it. And the boundary between the two happens to pass directly through my office at school, and someone in St Anne's obviously took offence to the name of the school, even though it had been called that for over a decade at the time. Obviously, I changed it back again, and that was it for a little while. But they changed it back once more, and this time they decided to move it about half a mile down the road. And for me, this is a great example of the impermanence of information. Anyone can edit anything nowadays, which means you have to be more discerning than ever in what you believe. And another very good example of this sort of thing appeared on the news just the other day. So in Herculaneum, up the hill from Pompeii, a number of charred scrolls were found in recent years, and they were in such a state that they couldn't possibly be read. Any attempt to unfold them would lead them just to crumble to dust. But through a miracle of X-rays and AI, the words can in fact be read. And if you are not excited by this today, anyone on this call, you're probably dead, but you're certainly in the wrong job. I think this is the most incredible example of how information can be lost and can be recovered through energy and endeavour and ingenuity. Now we are able to read the lost words from 2,000 years ago. The words themselves are an expression of a time lost, exemplifying how there are many ways to live as a human, but their recovery shows the power of inquiry and bringing together ideas and approaches to do something which is genuinely wonderful. And my final example of the impermanence of information also dates from the last 2 tumultuous weeks. Now, if you take the time to visit the White House website, you'll find a 404 error, notably on this page, which is supposed to house the Constitution. Now, this is by far not the most egregious removal of information from the US public sphere. Do watch out, for example, for the loss of scientific information that doesn't fit a particular agenda. Do look today for the news story about Donald Trump sacking the head of the US National Archives. But it is symbolic of what's happening. So for me, the motivation for inquiry today of all days is clear. It's always been important, and it makes a difference in every sphere. If you reach back into Old English, courtesy of Hannah Verdine's brilliant The Word Hoard, which I strongly recommend, I'm sure every librarian on the call has read it already, you see the word for a student, Leonungknecht, a learning night, as a definition of a learner. And then if you think about what teachers do, the etymology of Lario for a teacher paints us as servants of learning. And by the way, not enslaved people, even though you might feel like that some of the time. We are servants of learning. And I love that. I love the fact that we are servants of the people who are fighting the battle of learning. And the serendipity of the symbolism of heroic inquiry is really intriguing and wonderful in this context. So it's one thing to know where you are and where you're going, but it's quite another to actually get there. For those of you on this call who are early in this journey, you may be sharing one of the challenges that we faced at AKS. In short, most people at the school, when I arrived, hadn't really seen anything like this before. And there are many ways to approach this. Now, I'm always drawn to Douglas R. Hofstadter's book, Gödel Bach, and in particular, something he wrote in the introduction. And if you look at the cover, you can see what he's talking about. He describes his book as an attempt to reconstruct a central object that projects into the mathematician, into the artist and the composer. And I've long felt that our collective approaches to curriculum, to inquiry, to delivering information and education are also attempts to reconstruct something in the middle. Many different ways to look at it, but like shadows on the wall reflecting an ultimate final object, there is something we're all circling around. Now, Jenny and Daryl's answer earlier today that no particular curriculum foundation is necessary to start an inquiry journey is an important one. At AKS, the majority of the offering, particularly when I arrived, was a traditional A-level and GCSE platform with a few interesting fragments, but most importantly, enough of an attitude amongst the students and the parents and the teachers that engaging with the world was important to get us going. When I was at Oakham, the IB diploma programme compelled us to find a way to cope with the extended essay. At AKS, we had membership of the Round Square organisation as a foundation for character education. I also take Ruth Maloney's point this morning that the IB approach does align with FOSIL, and it does help to motivate it, particularly the extended essay and particularly the concept-based approach of MYP. But perhaps really, you need to identify a problem to solve, to connect and to wonder. As Daryl said this morning, the question of what is school for is really important. Perhaps it's the most important question I would urge everyone on this call to ask. So if you start anywhere, start with that. Now, back in 2019, where we started was with the creation of a learner profile. This is hewn from the IB learner profile and from the Round Square discoveries as a description and a motivation for what we were doing. It provided a framework and a language for the battleground that we are on. The goal then was to use FOSIL as a framework and the resources on the FOSIL group to make it real. And in particular for our year 7s, that's students aged 11 to 12, and for our year 12s, were students aged 16 to 17. The outcome of that particular slice of inquiry is in front of you now, and I'll pass over to Faye to talk about one phase of that.
Thank you, David. So as David has just shown you, the AKS Ask Big Questions by Curious Minds booklet celebrates the end of our Year 7 inquiry project. The students taking part in this project are 11 and 12 years old, and they are taught inquiry through the FOSIL framework in one lesson a week in their Learning to Learn lessons. At the end of that project, everyone receives a copy of the booklet in celebration. It gives students a feeling their work has been published. Parents are very impressed that after only 8 months in the secondary school, something to this standard has been achieved. And it also allows students in their own time to remain curious, with a huge number of their peer projects to read. It has become a true celebration of the work they have developed over a 6-month period and is displayed pride of place within our library. But we all know that with anything like this, the process, the journey itself, is key in the development of the skills of inquiry and the actual student themselves. Therefore, it's important to us that before we officially started the inquiry project, students took on a Learning to Learn short course in readiness, allowing students to be ready for the challenges they were about to face, exploring such things as motivation, resilience, grit, making them understand what it means to have a growth mindset. And because they are about to be pushed in a metaphorical pit of learning, which they will need to find ways of clawing themselves out of. Getting stuck is a natural and valuable part of the learning process, and finding ways of becoming unstuck is even better. This year will be our 4th year of this project and our 4th volume of this booklet. And alongside this booklet, all of the inquiry projects, likened to academic posters, are printed on A1 foam boards and displayed on easels, and students become masters of their own learning, taking their words from the project and learning how to talk about them and their findings to an invited audience from the AKS community at our very own evening of inquiry. Here is the booklet itself, and the best way to show you all of the projects undertaken and the quality of the work is to flick through its pages. The construction of the question, in my opinion, is the most important element and needs time to develop. It's important not to rush students with either the topic or the question. Developing it themselves leads to their own personal connection with it. And even when they are finding things tough, their joy for the topic continues to motivate them. You can see a vast array of interesting questions, differentiated in some cases to meet the needs of the student. The question is carefully constructed. Our booklet for this project has been brought together by carefully selecting from the resource bank on the FOSIL website and refining each year. This year, we've had a real focus on students trying to upskill their question to how might questions, providing the most amount of stretch and challenge. My favourite question this year, perhaps being, how might the world be different if dinosaurs were still alive today? How do athletes achieve what seems impossible? And how might Anne Boleyn's life and legacy make her Henry VIII's most famous wife? I will just allow time here to let the pages flick through, and then I'll tell you what else I've learned. There we go. So what else have I learned along the way? To be structured enough in my delivery to ensure progression, but also have the flexibility to allow freedom, especially in the early FOSIL stages. Time to make their own decisions is key, and this type of project in a lesson such as Learning to Learn can truly celebrate that. However, I have felt a need to have a more structured construction stage, looking at different ways to construct the essay, especially the main body, and the different ways depending on what the question needs. We also have a wealth of resources now from the previous years, so using Waggles to help unpick and upskill answers and ensure the trajectory runs from the question all the way through to the conclusion. For me, the reflection stage is an area which I need to develop a little more. Haven't truly been able to give this the time that it needs. So this year, a full debrief of the project with the students is planned, and reflection pit stops along the way have helped with this to get a true insight of the students' learning challenges and allowing them to recognise what to do if they are faced with such challenges again in future projects. Thank you. I'll now pass over to Nick O'Loughlin, Head of Student Inquiry, with an insight into the Year 12 project.
Hi, thank you, Faye. That was great insight into the Year 7s. So moving up into the Year 12 projects that we do, we came at it from a slightly different approach, in that not every student in the sixth form will undertake one, that this was very much aimed at our academic scholars. We did discuss for some time actually whether everybody should do one, and decided that we would stick it just to the scholars. David, can we move on? Is it working? Brilliant. So yeah, so we were very much looking at trying to push the academic standing of our scholars in Year 12 with the idea that it would provide them with a set of skills that they could then take with them through to universities as well. Next one, please, David. So this is where we were basing it. We really wanted to ensure that the students were not just rehashing what they had learned through their GCSE or A-level studies up to this point, and that it was very much going beyond what they would have studied in one of their subjects. We really wanted to make sure that their study skills of inquiry, of finding the right way to research skills, writing up skills, and referencing skills were all added to, and it was important that that became an influential part of the project. It's very much about independent learning. One of the things that Faye talked about was getting the question right. This absolutely stands true for the year 12s. Some of them find that reasonably straightforward. Some of them still need reassurance or ask for reassurance that the question that they have is a good question, but I'd normally throw it back to them for them to find out. We're after academic achievement, as we say, and one of the slightly background ideas also is to help those scholars who are applying for competitive applications at universities to hopefully stand out from the rest. So my background, I have taught at an IB school in the past and have helped numerous students with their extended essay, as well as helping deliver the theory of knowledge aspect of the IB. When I moved down to AKS, I took over the running of the EPQ projects that we did at the time. And then with FOSIL, we have developed our version of this, which the inquiry projects that we now offer. So there's obviously will be very familiar to everybody on the call about the way in which we work. It is very much when I set the students the challenge of doing their inquiry project, it is very much aimed at something that they are interested in already. If it is linked to their potential university course, that is good, but it allows them therefore to investigate and to construct new ways of thinking for their courses. This works particularly well for medics who quite often go down an ethical question regarding medicine. So what we ask them to do, there's more to it than just the essay, but essentially it is a 2,500 word academic standard, undergraduate standard essay, which is researched and fully referenced. And as a school, we decided on the Harvard reference system for them to use. They also produce a poster, an academic poster that goes with it, which is then used in our evening of inquiry learning. So all of the students have their essay printed out, a couple of copies of their essay printed out with them. We set up, again, easels with all the posters around the sixth form common room, and we invite all of their parents and governors and members of staff to come and talk and have an evening where the parents go and ask other students. Normally they already know about their own child's academic research by now, so they quite often go and speak to other students about it, which has been absolutely fantastic, and it's a real highlight of the process for this. One of the things that we've started doing this year, and we're going to very much build on next year, is we have a series of lunchtime lectures that we use for our students. It started out as members of staff giving lectures about a topic that they were particularly interested in, and we are now encouraging our students to do this so that they can pass on their new knowledge, their new understanding of a topic to the wider school community, which seems to have worked really nicely. One of the issues that we found is about making it a very time constrained concept. This is not something that the students have 2 years to do. This is very much, we start it at the October half term in year 12. So the students have been in the sixth form for 6 or 7 weeks before we introduce it. So they've kind of got an idea as to where their academic subjects are going, and some of the topics that they may have done with that. And we very much have it finished by the end of the Lent term, before the Easter holiday, so that it doesn't get in the way of other academic work that they might be doing for internal exams in the summer term. I have a timeline on the next slide, which shows a little bit more how it fits together. So just before the October half term, we introduce the idea and give them a couple of weeks over half term to think about what topic it is that they might want to investigate. Lessons in November, which we give over as part of our sixth form enrichment program, we introduce them to FOSIL, we introduce them to the necessary skills that they will need for their research, and how to write the essay. We've created our own in-house style for that. In December, they are essentially researching, they are finding journal articles, they are working out how to use Google Scholar to pinpoint the exact articles that they might need. And we go through the what makes a good article, how do we know it's a relevant source, and that kind of thing. January, and at the moment, they are starting to write their essays. They've got enough information together, they're starting to write them. Soon after half term, they complete the essays and then work on their academic poster. And so by March, possibly just after Easter, we have our evening of inquiry learning. And then moving from there into their year 13 year is when we would start asking them to offer the lecture series in school at lunchtime. So keeping the ideas fresh. On the screen, you should be able to see a series of past questions that the students have asked. Some of them are very much geared towards where they wanted to go with their undergraduate studies. Some of them are much more pure interest, that it is something that they have thought about for some time. One of the things, again, getting the question right is so important, but I think these titles absolutely show that if you ask teenagers, year 12 students, to actually push themselves and to investigate areas that they would not have thought of before, they absolutely rise to the challenge. They sometimes, one of the issues I find is sometimes they get quite stuck on their title to start with, but accepting that their title can morph and change over time is absolutely fine. And they do. The one about parental expectations was a fantastic essay. Should be read by all parents as their children move into secondary school. But no, so they are absolutely fantastic essays. One of the things I absolutely enjoy about this process, I get to read all of these and talk to the students about them. The things I now know that I never even thought I didn't know beforehand is absolutely fantastic. So it's a really good thing. So the posters they produce are slightly different to the year 7 posters. These are very much companion pieces to the essay. The essay is the main body of work, but essentially the posters that they produce, they include the abstract from the essay so that people can quickly see what it is. But then they're very much the reasoning behind they chose that topic. What did they learn about the process? What is it that they might do differently if they were to do it again? And those kind of areas, it's much more of a reflection piece that goes with the essay rather than being a standalone poster per se. And then there's another one about the different art style, which again just shows the different styles in which we get them to do it. And I think is there just one more slide of our 7? I know. Each of the students, we create a book again. So we edit all of the essays together to create a book that we keep a few copies of around school, and then the students can have a copy if they desire to take with them, which has got all of the essays in it from that year. So we're building up quite a nice little library of essays. And then finally, just as a end point, this is 7. She was talking to the students on how chemicals have affected human biochemistry over the past 300,000 years. That was her topic, and she did a fantastic job bringing it down to a level, to a certain extent, that all of the students could understand as well. So that sums up the Year 12 offering for AKS. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nick. So at AKS, we believe that education is as much about who we are as it is about what you know and what you can do. And this is why we're introducing Peaks, Pursuit of Excellence at AKS, which builds upon our exceptional academic and broader curriculum with a holistic approach to character education. We believe that young people need to be equipped with the personal values and capacity to make a difference in this world. And it's very exciting, therefore, that our experience with FOSIL and inquiry-based learning has ensured it features as one of our cornerstones. David, I think if you could, thank you. And again, if that's okay. So you can see here that, as I've just said, inquiry features as one of our cornerstones, with a commitment at AKS to develop it further across the school, sewing it into the fabric of each year group, because we know that the skills of inquiry, amongst others, are required for our students to succeed beyond AKS and as they navigate their way through this rapidly changing world. So here again, you can see these known in school as wiggly worms, but we've charted through each and every year and really looked at how we're going to ensure leadership, well-being, inquiry, oracy, and digital literacy will be present throughout all of our year groups, and how that will build on top from year 7 and 8, where they will look at knowing and applying, then application in year 9 and 10, and then into being able to thrive and flourish with these things in year 12 and 13. And I think what Nick's just spoken about there is the year 12 project truly shows how from year 7 they know and they are they get the skills and they gain the skills, and then by year 12 they're truly thriving and flourishing in this environment, and with everything there that they need to be then go on further. So yes, thank you. I'll pass back to David. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So and I'm very grateful for the work that Faye and Nick have done, but I'm grateful for everyone. I'm grateful for the students for getting involved. And the things which I've learned through my career, I've been teaching for 30 years now, I can probably distill onto a postcard. I have very few words of wisdom, but I suppose one of them is you've got to keep the joy. You don't want to rob people of the challenge. People rise to the challenge. The essay titles that are produced, particularly in the 6th form, blow my head off. If you ask people to do something difficult, they will do something difficult, but it's got to be joyous and it's got to be celebrated. And I think an important thing about this is it's not just doing the essay, it's not just producing the project, it's not just delivering the talk at the end of the day. Now, my background is also at Oakham in IB, NYP and the DP. And I have dragged people through the extended essay, as Nick will have done over the years, and we don't always feel the joy, do we? I think doing this. And what I like about this is it's not pegged necessarily to an examination. There's not a grade at the end of it, but there is a celebration. The book is really important. The book is a wonderful, lovely thing. I have copies of them on my desk in my office. The academic posters that the Year 7s have produced are all over the school. We've run out of room. We're going to have to start taking them down. We've got hundreds of the things. It's wonderful that you as a student can see something that you loved up on the wall. So I would encourage anyone doing anything like this, don't make it about the essay, make it about the joy of discovery. Make it as wonderful as, for example, unraveling the scrolls up from Herculaneum. And I take the point listening to the genuinely inspiring sessions today, listening to Janath and Ruth with their quite different perspectives, actually. My advice is to get the senior team on board. It does help to be the head, if I'm honest, because I can say a thing and it will probably happen. But you must get people on board with the mission of what you're doing. Do revisit what your school is for. For us, having a happy school is a core value, and I don't mean that in a trite way. Make sure that that is genuinely part of what you do. and think about the different ways that the express phase can work. You may have expressed it on a poster, you may have produced the essay, but there are so many ways you can express something, and it doesn't need to be the essay. For me, one of the best bits of the express phase is in the evening of inquiry when I'm standing with year sevens and I say, why did you do that? And then they go off on one about why they love dinosaurs or Rubik cubes or Arsenal or whatever it is. That's the reason to do it, because the joy of it is the thing which will sustain them going forward. And I'm just going to finish on a personal note. This terrifying and scruffy document, this belongs to my daughter, who, and I was alarmed to see Reuben at the height he is, and my Daryl might be alarmed that my daughter is now in year 7. This is an incredibly tatty document. There is good content, and Grace has been working with Faye on her project on fingerprints. It is wonderful also as a father to see my daughter find something she loves that I didn't expect her to love, and then to do something with it. And it's all happened because Daryl assembled this all those years ago. So on a personal note, as a dad, thank you, Daryl, for all you do, but thank you to everyone who's on this call for making this sort of thing possible. And at this point, I'm going to pause if anyone's got anything they'd like to ask or any comments they'd like to make.
So there is thank you so much, should I say, to start with. Thank you so much for that presentation. It was really interesting. Ruth Maloney has asked a question that was in my head. What role has your school librarian got in all of this?
Gosh, okay, so I know from Daryl that the librarian is look, I often say this when I do tours. I do say, look, this is obviously the library, it's where the books are, but it's so much more than where the books are. It is a hub for inquiry, it is a hub for learning. It's all sorts of things. It's a pastoral space, it's a social space, which is as it should be. It is physically the centre of our school, but it is philosophically the centre of our school as well. Therefore, we have so we don't have a traditional school librarian, but we have staff in the school working in the library who are leading on inquiry. So it's more the model of a teacher librarian than just a librarian, but the library is central. We are not a wealthy school, so we're not hugely resourced. And I know the library at Oakham is one of the best libraries I've ever been in. The library at AKS isn't one of the best libraries I've ever been in, but we are staffing it and prioritising it and resourcing it properly, and you have to do that. Libraries are central, and I will say books are central as well, because there is nothing more serendipitous than just picking up a book that lights a fire down the road.
Absolutely. So do you have, just a personal question, do you have somebody that organises and runs the physical collection, or is that somebody that's outside the library as well?
No, that's done by someone in the school. It's been done by 3 different people in the time they've been here. It's quite difficult to get people to move to Lancashire. In the last 6 years, there have been exactly 2 members of staff who've moved to the area to teach, and I'm one of them. So everyone else has been there since, well, their families have been there for 300 years. So we do actually struggle to recruit, but we do resource it properly.
Fantastic. Jenny's got a question for you. Thank you for your fantastic and joyous exploration of the celebration of inquiry at AKS Lytham. Your excellent Year 12 inquiry project sounds very similar and structured to the EPQ, and I'm curious why you decided to do this in-house rather than use FOSIL to prepare them for an EPQ. Was this because it gave you more flexibility? Do you have any students who want to turn this project into an EPQ? Does that make sense?
I suppose thank you, Jenny. That's a really good question, and I might tap into Nick as well for this. It's a pragmatic one. So from experience, just like with the extended essay, the joy of EPQ doesn't always come through. It was you'll forgive me. It was who's the person who created your logo as part of the
Hugh Rose.
Yes. So the fact that's wonderful. Some people love the thing they do for EPQ and they want to carry on forever. For some people, utilitarianism takes over. They don't finish it because they realise they don't need it for their university offer. I can't resource supporting a load of EPQs basically. So we found another way to do it that's quicker, keeps the joy, and does it early, because I think the earlier you teach people this, the better. But Nick, you've seen all of this, so
sorry, I just need to jump in and apologise that it wasn't Hugh, it was Lara.
It was Lara, yes. I love Hugh's work as well, but yes, I thought Lara's work was amazing.
Yes, sorry, Nick.
No, it's fine. Yes, I'll just add to what David just said. We don't do it as an EPQ. We used to offer the EPQ, but we decided that that was quite a time-heavy thing for students to complete, whereas in-house, our inquiry project, it is all done and dusted by essentially, well, now May, half term of year 12, which also means that the students are able to reference it heavily in their personal statements. And certainly, anecdotally, we are finding that when students are talking about it for those competitive entries, we had one student go off to Cambridge to do English, and they have to submit work that has been done outside of a organised course, for example, and she submitted her inquiry project, went to the interview, and they printed it out and they read through it. Well, they referenced it while she was there and talked about it, which was absolutely fantastic. So we don't offer the EPQ at all at the moment. So yeah, so students can't go from doing their inquiry project into doing the EPQ. So
and I will say so just to add to that, and thank you, Nick, because that's exactly right. Thinking pragmatically about it. I said at the beginning the metaphor about circling a central object. You know, in the sense of Plato's cave, there is an ideal, there is a Platonic ideal of inquiry, of the joy of learning, and so on. This is one way to cut it. The EPQ is another way to cut it. The extended essay is another way to cut it. I'm really happy we've done the thing, and that a lot of students have done the thing. And I don't think as many people would have done the thing if we'd done it purely through EPQ.
Are there any other questions? If not, I'll ask another if you don't mind. A lot of the people on the call will be school librarians. And obviously in your situation, it's a slightly different setup. But as a head and a senior lead, what would you say to those school librarians who want to do the things like Ruth and Yaneth are actually achieving, that are right at the beginning? How do they make that inroad from being the outside person who sits in the library to being the person that supports inquiry through the curriculum?
So I'm 51 and I've been at school since I was 4. I've never had a proper job. I've always been at school. My dad was a teacher and I wanted to not be a teacher because my dad was a teacher. But no one goes and works. The reason I'm a teacher is because I love school. And I don't think anyone who works in school is there and really doesn't like it. I don't think anyone is in school, no head, no deputy head, no teacher, who thinks it's the worst job in the world. My suggestion would be to show them what a good one looks like. And the things I've seen today, just like our sixth form project, blow my head off. The work that's going on in other schools is amazing. And I would dare any teacher, particularly a head teacher or a senior leader, not to be amazed by what the good one looks like. So I would gather as many possible good examples of a brilliant thing and show people. It is what I did with getting FOSIL off the ground at AKS. I got Darryl on a call. And he was very generous with his time. I showed people what had been done with our old year 9 projects and with extended essays. You can't argue with that. If you love learning, you can't argue with that. So we're happy to share anything in terms of what the students have done and their experiences. And I hope that will light the fire for senior leaders. I take the point it's really difficult and not everyone is interested, but really, how can you not be? So maybe put them in touch with us as well. Put them in touch with people who are doing a good job, who can share the joy.
Perfect. Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time. We really do appreciate it. I don't think there's any more questions. No, there aren't. So you're off the hook and I will invite my next guest in to speak. Thank you so much for joining us.